you have big families, I guess South doesn't really matter. If you have big families or you're traditional, as soon as someone passes away, you basically just start cooking. You just put stuff on the stove and people start showing up. And I was 18 years old and I was trying to figure out what my next move was going to be, if I was going to be a chef or what I was going to do. And I didn't want to lose my family recipes. So I went on this journey to collect as many recipes I could. So I took all the index boxes that my grandmother had and took them home and started typing on them. A little while later, my uncle came by and he's like, "What are you doing? Some of these recipes, she's never even cooked, bud. Let me go through and capture the ones that you should." So Brian took all of these recipes and typed them up. And this is back in the day when you actually had to type them up. And it was like, if you had a word processor, it was a big deal. So it has all of our family recipes in it, and it's something that's traveled all over the country with me, and I've used it almost at every establishment that I've ever been at. I've had some of those recipes on Oaks menu, on a Derby menu, on festival menu. They were with me with restaurants that I opened. You know, it was who I was, and I'm very proud of the food that we made. I'm very proud of the food that's in this book. And not too long ago, we do an event every year called Ducks and Tucks, and I did a family style menu, and I used all recipes from my family. And I think that is kind of what made me so excited about taking the time to talk with you guys, you know, because right now we're spending a lot of time with family. I know that a lot of people are stuck trying to figure out what's next with their family, and we all have been cooking nonstop, right? And I've been trying to really read a little bit more, and I've been reading this book, A Life in 12 Recipes. JGV, Jean-Georges Vongerichten. I tell you what, it's really good. I probably brutalized his last name, but what are you supposed to do? And it breaks down his life coming up as a young cook in the old school ways, you know, where you go there when you're 16 or 17 and you stage and then you work for some great people. He was lucky enough to work for some phenomenal chefs. And of course, he's a phenomenal chef. And I was reading these recipes yesterday afternoon and into the evening, and it struck me that I'm no JGV by any means necessary, but I think we all have those moments where food hits us in a way that changes us. And for me, what made me want to go down the road of writing all those recipes is when I was at the kitchen of my grandmother's house, I'd gotten there and I was saying that we cooked a lot of food. There was a pot of gumbo on the stove, and my Aunt Marion had just gotten there, and she lived in New Orleans, and she'd come over to Mobile, Alabama. That's where this is where my grandparents lived, and she put the pot of gumbo on, and she was cooking, and she's like, "There's some gumbo on the stove if you want some. It's Peg's." And I was like so excited because I love this gumbo. It's like all other gumbos fail in comparison. And I know it's because it's my grandmother's and I grew up on it. But I really went over and made a bowl of it. And I was sitting there, I was eating it. And I was realizing that this will be the last time I have a bowl of gumbo that my grandmother made. And it struck me as that food is so much more than fuel for the body. To me, anyway. To me. And it meant a lot that I was able to have that moment. And that moment changed me drastically because I no longer wanted to be one of the 50 things that I really wanted to be. I think at that moment I knew I wanted to be a chef, and I wanted to cook and own a restaurant and share this with other people. And if you guys feel that way, you know, I think when we talk about what we do, it all hits in that same spot. We probably wouldn't be doing anything else. And as I go through these recipes that Jean-Georges is talking about in his life, I highly recommend reading this. It's kind of, it's really kind of I would say, recharged me or energized me, but it has definitely, yeah, it's recharged me. It's made me think about what it's like to be a chef and what responsibility it comes with. And I think that a lot of people forget that. I know that I can forget that sometimes as, I get further and further out of the kitchen and further away with it, from the stove, if you will. I'm not chained to it anymore. I'm chained to a computer or a budget. I think that maybe we need to take a little bit of this time and remember that food was probably the reason why we got into this. It wasn't anything else. And whether you have your family's book and a bunch of recipes that your son wants to go and cook, and you have to get all the product, which is, I guess that's its own right problem, or you're going through and you want to read somebody else's recipes that changed their life or describes how they came up, I think we should. I think we should celebrate that because it kind of binds us all together. I mean, I see a lot of you guys out there on Facebook right now. I mean, hit me up and let me know what recipe changed your life. What was it? Was there one thing? I mean, I have so many, but for the one that was the catalyst for starting out and going down this path that now has been a tumultuous, likely crazy, there's been a lot of good, there's been a lot of awful, there's been a life is what it's been. And, I'm very happy with where I am now and what we're doing, and things are good. Well, as good as they can be, right? But I'm blessed. My family's healthy. We're healthy. I hope everybody out there is being healthy. But I really would like to know if you guys have any recipes that changed your life, that you thought. Julio says smoked briskets. Yeah, I'm telling you. Just recent, Julio, I broke the smoker out, and I have a giant smoker with the firebox, and it's a super pain in the butt, and you really got to stay on top of it. And I had too many things going on to be ruining a brisket. It was decent, but it needed some more time. It wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But there's something about smoking. I think that's my retirement plan. One day I'll just smoke briskets and pork butts and ribs. That'll be the retirement plan. But I've thought about it now as reading this book that I thought it would be great if you could break down your life in a few recipes. I know the one that would start it for me would be probably the gumbo. I got that opportunity at Ducks and Tucks to share this experience with them and walk them through all of these recipes that changed my life in different ways. And, it's something to be said. There's something to be said for what we cook, what we make, and how we do it. There's a sense of pride that we have in executing food that comes from our heart. And right now we're surrounded by family, or we're, worried about family. And there's only really one thing that we do well, probably. There may be several things, but the one thing that makes us feel fulfilled is cooking. So, like currently I'm doing a French onion soup. I got black beans on the stove. I cooked a bunch of sausage this morning. It's a constant. I'm writing menus. That's kind of like how I survive any other day, but now I get to cook more. Oh, thank you, Adrian. He says the gumbo was fire. It was. I want to share something with you that he said that really hit me hard. And then I think, we might wrap it up. And this is about page 111. I'm about halfway through. And he says, my number one rule in all of cooking is this: work clean, be clean. You cook the way you look. And I thought about that. And he goes on for the next 2 or 3 pages, and he talks about Thomas Keller, one of the best chefs in America, and how he started when his mother ran the restaurant. He was a dishwasher, and she made him clean the bathroom, spotless, every day. There's something to be said about working clean. Now, here's something that I'm sure that if Gina goes back and listens to this post, she's going to hold me to it, or this video. You got to work clean. And I'm one of those guys. I work clean in the kitchen, but I do make a mess, right? Like there's a lot of pots and dishes and stuff because I'm used to dropping it off at the dish pit. And now, since I've been at home, I think my kids are tired of me cooking because I am crushing the amount of pots and pans that normally would be used. I think I'm going to take a word out of this book and I'm going to apply it this week. And I'm really going to focus on working clean and cleaning as I go, not just thinking that if I just set the pots in the sink. I think it'll be a set of discipline that I need to apply. And that's what I'm going to take with this time over the next, couple of weeks. And I have to admit to you guys, last week I was talking about all the stuff that, I was trying to do and exercise, and I needed a timetable and things like that. I don't know how your week's been going, but I know that my timetable has been a little bit of a struggle. I haven't been able to execute it probably as well as I wanted, which is kind of upsetting, like it's one of those things where earlier in the week I didn't feel so well, and then I started to freak out like, oh my gosh, am I sick? But I never ran a fever, never had a cough. It was just I think I wasn't busy enough. And I see Joelle's on YouTube, very cool. And I was like really struggling with that and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I had to break out of the funk. So finally I got my act together and I started running again, and I'm going to hold myself to it. I've made a little post on Instagram trying to make it happen for the people that can't run. And you know what? We all got to kind of do what we can. So I'm going to be posting and trying to cook cleanly, not use all the pots and pans. And remember that food is really what started this whole thing for me. And having the opportunity to share that. If you guys want to see that gumbo recipe made, it's on our YouTube channel. I think Jaden and I did he and I did this cooking video together. It was like when we had like 1,500 likes or 1,500 subs on YouTube. So we did like a cooking channel, and it was really cool. We make it from scratch, but we also make it gluten-free at the house for Colin. So he's got, we don't have to worry about his celiacs. So it's a little different when you use the gluten-free flour, but the one that we made for Ducks and Tucks had the flour in it. It's definitely one of my favorite dishes, but you can watch me make it there. I love sharing it with you. It's got the full recipe on that site, or if you want it. I don't care if you guys make it at home. I don't care if you sell it in your restaurant. I just want you guys to experience what changed me and my direction in my life. I'd love to hear from you guys if there's any type of food, the recipe that changed you, and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that this is literally the dish, Send it over. You can hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Make any comments you want. I'd love to hear from you, especially at this time. And as always, I'm Chef JoJo, and until next time, cheers, guys. Take care of yourselves out there. I appreciate you guys. Where's my... There it is.